Today we're going to be tying the corn-fed midge. So this pattern is inspired by Egan's corn-fed caddis, which is one of my favorite dry flies. The order of operations is pretty similar. I just change out some of the materials to make it a little bit more midge-like. Kind of just ends up being a midge-shaped puff of CDC, so it floats pretty well. I tie it in both this natural pattern and in a high-vis pattern that uses a little brighter colored CDC. So to get started, I'm going to tie my materials in with UTC 70 denier in black. It's important to use a flossy thread because we're going to split the fibers to make a dubbing loop later. I've got a size 18 dry fly hook in the vise. I tie this in an 18 or in a 20. Both work pretty well. So to get started, I'm just going to create a bit of a thread body. Midges tend to just kind of look like a tube, so don't want too thick or weirdly proportioned midge body here. Next I'm going to take 2 dark dun CDC feathers and line up the tips. That looks pretty good. Almost. Was almost good. So line up the tips and then kind of measure. You want them to be just a little bit longer than where the length of the hook, I guess. Somewhere in there. Just transfer. We can kind of adjust these in a little bit. I take 3 loose wraps, kind of see where I am. That's too long. I'm just kind of gonna pull them through till they get to where I want them to be, which is just about there. Maybe it's a slight bit more. That looks good. So once you get them where you like them, lock them in, and then come in close with a sharp pair of scissors. I'm gonna pull up and snip them off. Next, I kind of take 1 wrap underneath them, and this will help just encourage them to prop up a little bit. Next, we take a single white CDC feather, kind of measure out similar length. And then tie it in. Same deal, 3 loose wraps, and then kind of lightly pull it to length. And we want it to be about the same length of the other CDC. Tie it in, and then snip it off close. Now you can see that white CDC is kind of on top, so that'll give it a little more flotation and also help you see it just a little bit better. So the next step is to create a dubbing loop. So for UTC, that means you want to take your bobbin and spin it counterclockwise until it kind of uncoils. You can kind of take a look to see where you are by taking your bodkin and running it down the length of the thread to see if it'll lay flat. Bodkin, I'm not sure if you can see. how that's laying flat right there. So that looks like it's pretty uncoiled. So I'm gonna take this thread in my hand or in my finger and then take my bodkin. Might take a few tries to get it, or if it's not uncoiled enough, it'll be kind of tough to split. There you go. And now you can see that the fibers are split. I've clipped off kind of half a side of a feather of the same dark dun CDC and put it in this Stonfo material clip. These are awesome. Definitely worth the price even though they're a little expensive. So we take our CDC fibers and put them in between our thread. So they sit like that, and we've created a dubbing loop. Next, I kind of bring my bobbin up and then just give it a good clockwise spin. So then your fibers will be spun and locked in a bit like that. So get up to the base of your wing and start taking your dubbing loop, making forward wraps up the fly, while also trying to encourage most of the fibers to go rearward. So keep wrapping till you get up towards the eye of the hook. You can see most of these fibers are kind of at least going back. Then take a 4 or 5 turn whip finish while building up a little bit of a head. Oh. One, two, 5. Then snip it off. So you can see those fibers give it a really buggy shape, but it still kind of maintains its mid shape from underneath, and then you can kind of pluck the CDC hackle fibers to length. So some of those are a little long. You can either go in with a few scissors and kind of erratically clean it up, or you can just kind of take your fingernail and pluck them. But I'm okay with this fly being a little bit buggy, so a few of the longer fibers don't bother me, and they definitely don't bother the fish. Oh yeah, so one last thing, I wanted to just give a little bit of a size comparison. There's a corn-fed midge, and here's a size 18 Griffith's gnat. So you can see they're kind of similar sizes, so while this may look kind of bulky and big for a midge, it's actually not. And especially because we have buffalo midges here on the Middle Provo, and whether it's imitating one of those or a cluster of midges, there's still a lot of movement and legs and everything, so it fishes very well. But there you go. There's a corn-fed midge. I encourage you to tie up a few. They float pretty well. They definitely catch fish. Thanks for watching this tying tutorial, and I encourage you to like and subscribe down below. Thanks.